Brett Favre, the gunslinger who redefined toughness in the NFL, has thrown more touchdowns, started more consecutive games, and broken more records than almost any quarterback in history. For 16 seasons with the Green Bay Packers, he was invincible, playing through broken bones, torn ligaments, and unimaginable pain. At 56, he's a Super Bowl champion, a 3-time MVP, and a Pro Football Hall of Famer. But what happens when the Iron Man discovers he's not made of iron after all? When the quarterback who played 297 consecutive games faces an opponent he can't outrun. This is the devastating truth about Brett Favre, a story of addiction that nearly destroyed him, of a father's sudden death hours before the biggest game of his life, of betrayals that shattered his legacy, and now, a diagnosis that threatens everything he has left. The world saw the warrior who never missed a game. But behind that iron will lies a story not glamorous, but brutal, filled with pills, grief, scandal, and a disease that's slowly stealing his memories. If Brett Favre has ever made you believe in second chances, in playing through pain, in refusing to quit when everything hurts, hit like as tribute to his resilience and fire. This is the story of a man who conquered the NFL, lost himself to addiction, rebuilt his life, destroyed his reputation, and now faces his toughest opponent yet, Parkinson's disease. This is his untold story. October 10th, 1969. Brett Lorenzo Favre was born in Gulfport, Mississippi, but raised in the tiny town of Kiln, population barely 2,000. His beginning was marked not by privilege, but by humidity, poverty, and football. Kiln was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where opportunities were scarce, and escape seemed impossible. His father, Irvin Favre, was a high school football coach at Hancock North Central High School. Tough, demanding, relentless. Irvin didn't just coach football, he lived it, breathed it, expected his sons to do the same. But there was no coddling, no shortcuts. Brett grew up in a household where affection was earned on the field, where weakness was unacceptable. His mother, Bonita, held the family together while Irvin pushed Brett beyond his limits. The Favre family wasn't wealthy. Money was tight. Luxuries were non-existent. Brett wore hand-me-downs, played on fields that were more mud than grass, and learned early that toughness was currency in Kiln, Mississippi. At Hancock North Central, Brett played quarterback for his father. Every mistake was scrutinized, every weakness exposed. Irvin never let his son forget that being the coach's kid meant working twice as hard for half the recognition. But Brett had something special, an arm that could rifle passes through tight windows, and a competitive fire that burned hotter than the Mississippi sun. Still, college scouts weren't impressed. He was too small, too wild, too undisciplined. The only scholarship offer came from southern Mississippi, not Alabama, not LSU, not the powerhouses he dreamed of. Southern Miss, a backup role, no guarantees. At 17, Brett Favre arrived in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, 7th on the depth chart. The beginning was not glamorous, but grueling, fighting for scraps of playing time, waiting for a chance that might never come. Then came a car accident in the summer of 1990 that nearly ended everything. Brett was 20 years old when his car flipped. He suffered a concussion, fractured vertebra, and had 30 inches of his small intestine removed. Doctors said his season was over, maybe his career. 6 weeks later, he was back on the field, leading Southern Miss to a comeback victory over Alabama. That moment, playing through impossible pain, became his identity. But NFL scouts still weren't convinced. Brett Favre sat and waited, watching quarterbacks get selected before him. Finally, in the second round, 33rd overall, the Atlanta Falcons called his name. Not the first round, not the glory, just a backup role behind Chris Miller, making roughly $100,000 in his first season. He threw exactly 5 passes in his rookie year, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Atlanta gave up on him almost immediately. But February 10, 1992, changed everything. The Green Bay Packers traded a first-round pick to acquire an unproven backup quarterback from Mississippi. Ron Wolf, the Packers' general manager, saw something others missed. Green Bay was a frozen wasteland of losing. They hadn't won a championship since 1967. Brett was 22 years old, drinking too much, partying harder, seemingly destined for failure. Then came September 20th, 1909 third quarter. Packers trailing the Cincinnati Bengals. Starting quarterback Don Majkowski went down injured. Brett Favre jogged onto the field at Lambeau Field. He threw a game-winning touchdown in the final seconds. The comeback kid had arrived. By 1993, he was the full-time starter, earning approximately $1.4 million per year. 1995 brought the first MVP award and a $19 million contract extension. 1996, the pinnacle. Brett Favre led the Green Bay Packers to Super Bowl XXXI, defeating the New England Patriots 35-21 on January 26, 1997 in New Orleans. He was 27 years old, and on top of the world. His salary jumped to over $6 million annually, with endorsements adding millions more. 1997 brought a second consecutive Super Bowl appearance and another MVP award. 1998, a third straight MVP, the only quarterback ever to achieve that feat. By 2001, his contract with Green Bay was worth approximately $100 million over 10 years. The consecutive starts streak began on September 27, 1992, and wouldn't end until December 5, 2010, to 197 consecutive games. Broken thumb, torn ligaments, separated shoulder, concussions, nothing stopped him. Brett Favre became the symbol of toughness in the NFL. But behind the heroics, darkness was growing. 1995, the peak of his powers. What few people knew was that Brett Favre was addicted to painkillers. Vicodin. Percocet. Whatever it took to keep playing through injuries that would sideline normal humans. He was taking as many as 15 pills a day, chasing the high as much as the pain relief. His behavior became erratic. Mood swings, paranoia. He had a seizure during a hospital visit, his body finally rebelling against the chemical assault. In 1996, just months before winning the Super Bowl, Brett checked into the Menninger Clinic in Topeka, Kansas for 46 days, addiction treatment, detox, confronting demons he'd hidden from the world. He emerged clean, won the championship, and seemed unstoppable again. But then came December 21, 2003, the phone call every child dreads. Brett's father, Irvin Favre, had a heart attack while driving near Kiln, Mississippi. He was 58 years old, dead before the ambulance arrived. The man who'd pushed Brett to greatness, who'd never been satisfied, who'd defined what toughness meant, gone in an instant. The funeral was scheduled, but there was a problem. December 22, 2003. The very next night, the Packers had a Monday night football game against the Oakland Raiders. Brett faced an impossible choice: grieve with his family or play the game his father lived for. He played. Not because he was heartless, but because he knew what Irvin would demand. That night, on national television, with millions watching, Brett Favre threw for 399 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 41-7 demolition. It was the greatest performance of his career, fueled entirely by grief. Al Michaels called it on air. This has been one of the most extraordinary performances in NFL history, but the cameras didn't show what happened after. The collapse, the tears. The realization that the man who'd made him was gone forever. The grief never fully healed. Then came the betrayals, self-inflicted wounds that destroyed his legacy. 2008, sexting scandal, explicit messages, and photos allegedly sent to Jen Sturger, a New York Jets sideline reporter, while Brett was married. The investigation, the public humiliation, the disgrace. His wife, Deanna Favre, stood by him, but the damage was done. Then 2020 brought something far worse. Brett Favre became embroiled in the Mississippi welfare scandal. $77 million of funds meant for the state's poorest residents allegedly diverted to connected individuals and pet projects. $5 million went to a volleyball facility at University of Southern Mississippi where Brett's daughter played. 1.1 million went to Brett himself for speeches he allegedly never gave. Text messages emerged showing Brett asking if the media would discover where the money came from. The quarterback who'd been a hero was now accused of stealing from the poor. Lawsuits, investigations, congressional hearings. In 2023, Brett repaid $1.1 million, but denied wrongdoing. The reputation built over 20 years crumbled in months. It is heartbreaking when legends become cautionary tales, but the cruelest opponent was yet to come. September 24, 2024, Brett Favre, 54, testified before Congress about the welfare scandal. During his testimony, he revealed something that shocked the sports world. He'd been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, the same condition that ravaged Muhammad Ali, that stole Michael J. Fox's movements. Now, it was coming for the quarterback, who'd never missed a game. I've recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's, Brett said quietly. This is also a cause dear to my heart. The Iron Man was rusting. At 56, Brett Favre lives in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, near where his football dreams began. He's married to Deanna, his high school sweetheart, who stood beside him through addiction, scandal, and disease. They have two daughters, Brittany, 35, and Brella, 25. His estimated net worth is approximately $100 million, though legal fees from the welfare scandal have taken their toll. The Parkinson's diagnosis has changed everything. His hands shake slightly now. His movements are slower, more deliberate. The disease is progressive, incurable. But Brett approaches it the same way he approached 300-pound defensive linemen. With stubborn defiance, he's become an advocate for Parkinson's research, working with the Michael J. Fox Foundation and other organizations. The irony isn't lost on him. The warrior who played through everything now battles an enemy that can't be tackled, can't be outsmarted, can't be beaten by will alone. He spends time with his grandchildren, trying to create memories before the disease steals his ability to make new ones. The welfare scandal remains unresolved. Lawsuits continue. Some see him as a villain who exploited the poor. Others see a man who made mistakes but didn't deserve character assassination. The truth, as always, is complicated. What's certain is that Brett Favre can never reclaim the unblemished legacy he once had. But he's still here, still fighting, still refusing to quit. At 56, Brett Favre stands as proof that heroism and failure can exist in the same person. That toughness doesn't mean invincibility, and that the hardest battles are the ones you can't win by simply refusing to stay down. From Kiln, Mississippi to Lambeau Field, from Super Bowl champion to Parkinson's patient, from NFL icon to scandal-plagued defendant, he threw for 71,838 yards and 508 touchdowns in his career. He also made choices that hurt people, that damaged his legacy, that can't be undone. But he's still standing, still fighting a disease that doesn't care about 297 consecutive starts or 3 MVP awards. If this story touched your heart, leave a tribute below. Share a moment when Brett Favre's refusal to quit, his warrior spirit, or his willingness to play through pain, reminded you that courage isn't perfection, it's getting back up, even when the whole world is watching you fall. This is Brett Favre, gunslinger, champion, addict, scandal, survivor, flawed, human, still fighting.